Welcome to the Head Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Honiger is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Honiger team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. This week we have David Thompson on the show, which is a cracking episode. Before we get into that, Sophie, you've written an article for this week?
Yeah, so I recently came across a paper a while back by Paul Kenyon and co. talking about how many terminals we use versus maternals, and that in New Zealand we underuse terminals quite significantly. So we're not really utilising terminals as much as we should. So there's a little calculator that we've shared that you can work out how many ewes you can put to a terminal ram, rather than just sort of a guesstimate. But yeah, just sort of trying to open some eyes that we can actually use more terminals was quite surprising.
Great, yeah, we've seen a fair few terminals used around the place, and we certainly recommend, and it's great to get those BMOB used to a terminal so you're not having to worry about them culling their replacements, and there's always a lot more growth in the system by using a terminal rather than maybe going for a higher maternal weight. One person who does breed maternals is David Thompson. It's great to have him on the show. He will have a crack at anything, as you're about to hear, and known Dave for a long time, good friend of mine, and great to have him on the show finally. It was actually a recommendation from Dwayne Duxon or a requirement for him to come on the show that we had Dave Thompson on, which we've had Hamish, his son, on before. So great to hear from Dave this week. Welcome to Head Shepherd, David Thompson.
Thanks, Ferg. Thanks for the invite.
Great to have you along, mate. And yeah, we could talk all sorts of things with you, from sheep breeding through to eating saltbush, and we'll probably cover a bit of that, both those territories. Obviously, we might just start with the Merino stud that you obviously started back in the day, and Hamish has grabbed with both hands more lately. Obviously, you're still involved, but maybe just talk us through the bit of the change you made since you sort of started through to what the sheep look like today.
Yeah, started the stud in 1992, hit a massive brick wall in 94 where the shearing team wouldn't come and shear the sheep because they were too tough. Body strike, I remember in April of that year, dead ewes with lambs, and thinking we cannot do this anymore. So I've turned into a bit of a reformed smoker, a breeder. We just had to say, righto, we got rid of 80% of the sheep in 95, changed direction, went to plain-bodied sheep, and I suppose reinvented ourselves then. And then our first sale in 98, and really changed the direction. And then 1998, we were invited to go into the Merino validation project, was the predecessor to sheep genetics, and so we've been part of sheep genetics right from the very start. So that was been probably the biggest step forward for us, is the tools available on that. And working with you back in the early 2000s on growth, muscle and fat as our three pillars, plus staple length for us. But that's really what we've built our type of sheep around. I mean, I always say if I had to choose one breeding value would be fat. Genetic fat would be the one that I would always pick as the best or the most valuable trait. If I had to only have one, that's what I'd take.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I remember that when we first met, I was actually doing my PhD over there in WA, and I was looking I had maiden ewes, and I was looking for a ram that had a heap of growth, a Merino ram that had a heap of growth and carcass. And I think it was probably about a month after this, or a couple of months after this, and after your ram sale anyway. And obviously, there was no rams about, but I did a bit of a search, and Moojepin came to the top. So that's how we went and said g'day. And obviously, we've had a heap to do with each other since then. And it was interesting.
I remember it well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So. And then we started. 2009 when you bought the new farm. We obviously 2009, and we did that first sort of work, which sort of went into feed efficiency work and some of the first stuff around methane that Tomo and we were doing. The shed down in Medina. It's been a long history of chipping away together.
Yeah, and also just with you lamb joining since 2010, working with Murdoch, we've been doing that every year since then. So it's been a it's been a good collaboration, I think, with yourself and Murdoch and stuff over the years, because it's good to work with those sort of people.
Yeah,
to advance the industry as much as we can.
There's one thing you'll never be short of, Dave, and that's ideas. Well, I reckon we should explore a fair few of them. We might start with like the long-fed mutton type stuff, or the long-aged mutton. Sorry, obviously, COVID probably dealt it a bit of a blow, but you did at least prove that there was a market demand for mutton if you got the product right and the marketing right.
Yeah, I think if you bred it well and you fed it well and then you killed it well and hung it well, it tasted great, and that was what we wanted to prove. That if you actually had, like for dry aging mutton, you need to have fat cover on the carcass, but not too much. So when did we start that? 2013, I think we started that into restaurants in Perth. Unfortunately, it did die, mate. Not for COVID. It was the butcher went broke, and we had two big customers that never paid their bill. So we really hit the wall pretty hard. But we did prove that the product was really good. And look, we'd love to do it to get going again if we can actually. Yeah, if I have enough time. See, my wife says I'm not allowed to have any more ideas. I
reckon she said that 15 years ago, mate. That didn't stop you, but
no, it didn't. I often get like I wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Geez, I've got this idea," and then she just rolls over and says, "Go back to sleep." But anyway, so the meat stuff. That's how we morphed into the saltbush. Was we were supplying restaurants in Perth, and a chef said, "Look, I need some saltbush, and we're getting it from the eastern states, and it's not salty. So can you supply some?" So that's really how we got into that, and that was in 2015. So we've been picking just about every week since then, saltbush, and then it led to what else grows on the salt flats on our farm in particular, but in WA. And so I just went off and started eating stuff on the flats and lost all my hair. So that's how we started. No, steady. I do it a little bit. But that was really the start of our saline agriculture business. So that was 2015.
Yeah, right. Before we'll bolt in there, but if we just stick on the dry aged mutton, so that was how long were they hung for, and what was the? I guess.
So look, we worked a bit with Robin Jacobs. He was at Deepwood at the time, and we did work with the University of Melbourne as well. So there was not much difference between. We did 21 days, but there was a very little difference between 14 and 21. The big problem with 21 is you had a lot more wastage. So you lost about 23%, I think, of product through shrinkage. So we were doing 21, but in reality, I think 14 was a better spot because it was. Well, we're paying for cool room space. I was saying $1 a body a day, so it was costing there. But it did show you how good the product was. Man, it was good. Yeah.
And was it sold in like the restaurants were using it in the traditional? They would use lamb, or was it into different sort of methods of cooking?
It was really. I mean, if we could have a sheep with 3 heads, it would have been great because we could sell necks like no tomorrow. We could sell shoulders like couldn't sell legs. Just could not sell legs. So the legs are about 3.5 kilos, too big. Apart from the Indian restaurants, they want them, but they only wanted to pay $4 or $5 a kilo. But so we had, might have 60 or 70 legs hanging around. What do you do with them? So we did try to take cuts out of there, take the knuckle out, take the top side out, but it was just a hard sell, which farmers found really weird because we always have a leg roast, but it was the shoulder because there was a lot more marbling in the shoulder than any other cut. But as long as they cooked it really slowly, so they'd be cooking it for 40 hours like sous vide, and it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. And I do remember we did sell a 10-year-old ewe for $300. And we thought that was bloody magic until we went up and had a feed, and it cost us $282 to eat the bloody thing. So it was amazing. But it was you would never say to another farmer, "Oh, we killed a 10-year-old ewe and had it." But this was a top restaurant having a 10-year-old ewe, 3,000 days pasture grazed ewe that is on the plate. Magnificent.
Yeah. And I love that concept of a number of days on grass or whatever like this. Yeah, I mean, I think
it's a different language you have. That's the thing. It's decommoditizing the industry, as opposed to selling sheep to an abattoir or wool to the trade or grain. This is you're actually dealing with the customer, and if they don't like it, they'll let you know. And if they do like it, they also let you know. So it was a really quick turnaround of don't want one of those, or more of those, please. So quite interesting. Yeah.
And I guess that was just start of a journey where you weren't happy to sit out the front of a restaurant. You wanted to get out in the kitchen and see what was going on, and a conversation with chefs. And that must be. I mean, would have to be one of the more rewarding parts of the last decade.
Absolutely, yeah. Going into the kitchens and talking with those people, it really opens your eyes, because I mean they're at the coalface with consumers, and it really is quite and not an enlightening conversation. It's a different conversation because they're really time poor. You can't faff about. You can't be. You've really got to get to the point. And as one chef said to me, he said, the story will open the door, but if the product's no good, the door will shut. So the last thing you want to do is over promote and under deliver, because you will just be cut off.
Yeah. Interesting. So we'll get into the salt stuff, but maybe just explain for those people that don't live in Australia or WA where salt, like the salinity problem, just explain why it is, what it is, what's happening.
Oh, well, I suppose that the wheat belt of WA is probably the epicentre of dry land salinity in the world. So there's about 24 million hectares in the wheat belt. 1955, then when we used to do the farm census, so farmers used to write in how much salt was there. It's around 72,000 hectares in 1955. 2022, there's now 1.72 million hectares. So we're losing around 15 to 20,000 hectares a year. I think if the math's right, it's about 4 square metres a second over the last 70 years. And it is a massive, massive problem. So WA has the oldest soils in the world, so the most weathered, lowest fertility, but the most soil through rainfall. So, rainfall's not pure, it's got salt in it. So you've got about 10 to 15 kilos of salt per year in rainfall per hectare. And once in our situation in WA, when you clear the bush, the water table will rise, and it has risen, and with it, it brings the salt. So, and it's a slow kill. It's a really slow kill. So it's people didn't realise what we were doing back in the day clearing land, but it is a consequence of European farming methods. Sure, we've made a lot of money in the state. We're a wealthy state, but this is one of the major costs, and there's been billions of dollars spent trying to fix it. And our view was, we've got this problem of too much water in the driest state on the driest continent. It's just that it's salty, so let's grow plants that actually use that water. So that's really where we sit.
Yeah, and then, as you said, you basically walked around chewing on stuff and tried to avoid any of the 1080 carrying plants and have now, I guess, found products that, and maybe just talk us through where or the sort of products you're selling and where they're going, what's happening.
Yeah, well, they're all halophytes. So a halophyte is a plant that thrives in salt. So it'll draw up salt, concentrate it in their leaves, and then they will drop those leaves when they mature. So our idea is to draw up the salt, then harvest those leaves before they drop it. So it's really trying to harvest the salt in a leaf form and send it off for a profit. So that's it. But there's not every halophyte's the same. So you can't go and put saltbush, old man saltbush, on the valley floor. It will die, not because of the salt, but because of being waterlogged. So you've got to be careful where you select those plants, where you put those plants. Sorry. So saltbush was the first, and I remember I used to start about 4:30 in the morning, go off and pick my saltbush, and then do the day's work, and then pick some at night, and then deliver to Perth. But we had a customer in Perth who ended up becoming my business partner. So then 2017 Moojepin Foods was formed. So that took a bit of pressure off me. So I don't have to do any dealing with restaurants or wholesalers. I just have to deal with production. So Lance McLeod is my business partner. So he deals everything post picking. is his role. So he would come up with ideas of, how about we try this, how about we try that. So there's two of us actually having a bit of a crack on what we can grow. So really it is, as long as it's the halophyte and tastes good, we'll have a crack. So it doesn't matter where in the world it comes from. So we grow quite a lot of ice plants. Ice plants actually a declared weed in Western Australia. But that's a really good plant for us to grow. Any main ones are like old man saltbush, samphire, ice plants, cocala, sea purslane, and other smaller ones. But they're probably our main ones. And it's we can't keep up. Can't keep up with the demand, which is a good thing, but it can be stressful.
And so now you've got a couple of pickers that are picking full-time or part-time, and is it mainly the main trade into the east, or are you selling a bit locally? Or
we're selling a bit locally. We have, we've got three employees, so two full-time, so Sweetie and her mum, and they pick 4 days a week, so it's not full-time, but near enough full-time. And then Jacko, he sort of helps me in the greenhouse. He's 2 days a week, and so it's all manual. It's all quite tricky to get volume when you're picking by hand. It's hard yards, but they're bloody good. Like they're seriously good workers and good company, and never complain. So we're very happy to have them on board. But what else are we going to say? Oh yeah, well we've got so in 2018, we got a federal grant, Smart Farming Partnership grant. So that enabled us to build 2 hydroponic greenhouses, plus put in a saltwater bore to grow these plants inside. So that was a major shift for us, was to actually be able to control quality, fertilise the plants, and make it easier to pick. Because instead of being on the ground, they're actually a metre off the ground. So that was a big shift as far as consistency in supply and quality.
Yeah, and I'm imagining you can't just Google the sort of the agronomy of an ice plant. Like there's got to give you a whole heap of trial and error in terms of what you fertilise it with and when you fertilise it and what's the you're basically starting from ground zero in agriculture.
There is absolutely no one to talk to, like no one.
Yeah.
So we did have a guy helping us who was a flower grower in the Swan Valley. So he helped us set up all the pumping and the fertiliser and all that sort of stuff. But we never knew how much to put on and whether it was right or whatever. So it's just been trial and error. So some things just didn't work. So we've got one under plastic greenhouse where some plants really, really go well and others don't grow. But, you lose a lot of plants when they don't work. And also, we had one ice plant that we thought was an absolute crackerjack. So we grew shitloads of it. Then we couldn't sell it. So it just, it's okay for us if we like it, but the chef said, no, I don't want it. So we had about 10 grams worth of that sort of stuff we just had to throw out. So, but you don't realise that until you've actually spent all the money, put them all in, and then you go to pick it and nobody wants it. So that's hard. But probably our biggest challenge is because most of the stuff is used as a garnish. So if we can actually get it from a garnish 2 to 5 grams to a side dish, 20 grams, huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah.
But
so most of it is just sprinkled on or chucked in a salad or something as a bit of a
well, as people often ask, like you just asked, what do people do with it? I'm not a chef, man. Right, so we.
You don't care as long as they buy it.
Yeah. That's right. But things like, samphire is an amazing plant, and the good thing about it is an international plant. So you can actually buy it in the supermarket in Singapore. You can buy it in the supermarket in America. And you can buy it in the supermarket in Europe. But you can't buy it in a supermarket in Australia. My bloody farming neighbours have never even put it in their mouths. They said, I don't think you can eat this stuff. But it's an amazing plant. And, there's lots of stuff you can do with it. In America, they call it sea asparagus. So wherever you can use asparagus, you can use this. So it's and it's the one that we probably have the most demand for, but it is the most difficult one to grow. So I think we're either the biggest or the second biggest samphire grower in Australia, but we're not very big, we're tiny. But in the middle of winter, we're the only ones that can grow in the middle of winter. No one else seems to be able to do it. So that's been good. But it can be very, very frustrating when you've got if we could sell 100 kilos a week and you've only got 30, who gets it? Who gets the 30? It's really quite difficult. Really quite difficult. So, yeah.
And is it like when the chefs knock you back on your ice plant or whatever? Is that just taste profile that is different to what they wanted, or they just don't know?
Just doesn't fit into what they're doing. I mean, that's the other challenge with dealing with chefs is they like to change the menu. So you might be on the menu. Yeah. I do remember quite vividly the best restaurant in Australia, which is Key Restaurant in Sydney. We had just won a national award with our red carcalla, and Pete Gilmer rang me and said, "Oh, look, I'd like to have this on the menu for the next 10 weeks. Can you supply it?" I said, "Yeah, no worries, Pete, no problem." We got back here and the wingless grasshoppers had been through, and just about every single carcalla leaf had a brown spot at the end of it. And it was the most stressful period of my life, I think, trying to supply, it wasn't huge amounts. It might only be 10 kilos a week, but we had to pick about 50 kilos a week to get 10 good kilos. And I was never ever did that again. Never did that again. So, and that's what we also, we went from, it was actually thanks to Pete Gilmore, because we did contact him and say, look, can you give us the name of good wholesalers that we can actually deal with, as opposed to trying to deal with 15 or 16 chefs. We can deal with one wholesaler. Firstly, we get paid, and we don't have to worry about delivery to individual restaurants across Sydney. So that was probably our biggest advancement, was moving to wholesalers, as opposed to. I mean, we still do some restaurants, but generally in Sydney we have two big wholesalers in Sydney, one in Brisbane, one in Melbourne, and one in Perth. And one in Mug River. So they're the main ones we have.
Yeah, right. And obviously you're fair away from Sydney, so it's obviously a bit of a car drive to Perth and on a plane to Sydney, is it? Yeah.
Welcome to my world, Ferg. Welcome to my world. Dealing with trucking companies, it can be a nightmare. I mean, COVID was probably the biggest challenge we had, to actually get stuff to Sydney. Because of when WA was in lockdown, or the rest of the country was locked down, we had to go from, I remember, Perth to Darwin to Brisbane to Sydney, and you could be kicked off the plane at any one of those spots. So It was a freaking nightmare. So anyway, we were well looked after by two Providals in Sydney. They were very good to us, our wholesaler. But yeah, it's like we picked today. It'll be on the truck at about 2 o'clock. And be at the airport tomorrow morning, and it'll be in Sydney by 2 o'clock tomorrow. So that's really what happens, and we've just got to make sure that we get it on the truck. So if the truck's not running, it can be a real problem. So I'll end up having to drive halfway to Perth, and Lance will have to drive halfway, meet up. But that's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But it's not great. But that's what we've got to do. So it's The logistics are difficult in getting it there, but that's part of it.
Yeah, indeed. And just because you hadn't done enough, you decided to make some Moojepin beer this year. How did that come about?
well, I thought that a saltbush beer would be pretty good, and we'd been around to see a few brewers, and no, you can't do that. Anyway, I ended up talking to Nigel down at Lucky Bay Brewing at Esperance, and he said, "Yeah, we can do that. No problem." So we had a big launch, a food lunch down at Albany and in May, and I said, "Look, can we get it done?" Yeah. So racing around. So we supply all the wheat and not all the wheat, but it's 100 kilos of wheat, 130 kilos of barley, and 2 kilos of dried saltbush. So that's what we started with, and I said to Nigel, I said, what if it tastes like shit? And he said, no, it'll be right. And he rang me up about 10 days in. He said, it tastes like shit. So no, it was just too bitter. It was just too much saltbush. And I remember him saying that you've got to be really careful with botanicals, that you don't overdo it. And so we did. They did it. So they faffed about and got it sorted, and it's a goer. So we just ordered our second batch, so that will be done later this year. So it's I think it's a good beer. Like it, do you, Ferg?
Yeah, no, it's not too bad at all. I think you're doing well to drink a pallet of it so far, but that's good.
Well, yeah. Well, we've got 111 cartons, and I said to Nigel that I think we've got 65 left, and I had to count. There's only 32 cartons left, so I don't know whether we've got really quite a few.
I've only visited once.
Yeah, Ken Dux has been here though.
Yeah,
and
true.
But we do have it for sale at Nibing, so they've gone through about 10 cartons there, and we've got into Katanning Country Club and a restaurant Perth. So it's slow going, but it's good. All the feedback's been really good, really
excellent.
So
good.
But okay. Yeah, and the gin, we've got a gin as well, but the beer's a big thing.
Yeah, right. What's next, mate?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Righto, we'll just wait. We'll
just
keep an eye on the website. I'm thinking back in 92 when you were starting a Merino stud, this wasn't how you were thinking farming was going to go.
No, not at all. Not at all. But isn't that the good thing about it, though?
Yeah,
that's the great thing about what we do, you know. But I think it's always been have your eyes open and just look around and see. And I love breeding sheep. I mean, I absolutely love it. I think it's the great thing about breeding sheep. There's never a finish point, point.
Yeah.
But the salt stuff, it's such a big problem we've got, and all the effort that's gone into try to drain land and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it hasn't fixed the problem, and the problem is still here. So let's look at a different way. I mean, I talk about my new idea. I mean, to do overnight. I mean, we've been working.
Of course, you've got a new idea.
I know. Well,
that's given.
I'm a bit doughy today, but we had a feature on the ABC last year on it, and I got contacted by a researcher at the King Abdullah University in Saudi Arabia, and she called me up, and they've been doing quite a bit of work with salinity, which is samphire, but it's just they call it that there for oil extraction for cooking oil. So she's actually moved to Newcastle Uni, so she's going to be over here in a couple of months. So it got me thinking about biofuel production. So that's what I think. I mean, it's all very well having food, but to solve the problem, we need hundreds of thousands of hectares to be farmed. And the biofuel, I think, is something that could really push that. Yeah. So if we could actually have a farming cooperative that grows our own fuel, we can have carbon neutral grain then, not just for us, but as a state. So we've also got the University of Queensland on board to try and help us work our way forward there, trying to get some private investment to kickstart it. So we don't know what the halophyte will be. It may not even be an edible one. It might be one that you can't eat, but grows really quickly. So that's I think is something I'm pretty excited about if we can do it. I mean, we've got masses and masses of water, and let's grow plants that can grow it. And so that's where we're up to at the minute. So we haven't got any money yet, but I reckon we'll keep having a crack. But it's really good to talk to these people from all over the world about some of the problems. I mean, India's got a huge problem with salt. Canada, the whole world is getting more saline. So if we can actually utilise it for the good, I think it'd be great. Really good.
Does it end up ameliorating, like if you got saltbush grown, does it drop salt content? Like, are you exporting salt to Sydney 5 kilos at a time, or is that not how it works?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what a halophyte does. And if you look at the valley floors here, particularly with samphire, that you've got these old plants, but they drop their salt concentrated leaves on the ground to stop any competition. So there's nothing growing around them. But if you look where roadwork's been done or where there's been an increase in organic matter, new plants come up all the time. So it is that you're actually exporting that salt. They store that salt, and that's their mechanism to survive. And I think it's quite a clever concept as a plant.
Yeah, indeed.
So, but I've got this idea of halophytic algae that they can double their size in 3.5 hours. That's the sort of stuff I think we could really push for the biofuel. Not that I'm into eating algae, but I think it'll be.
But that's biofuel production out of, or even farm, like even omega-3s or whatever algae. There's all sorts of stuff that
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we can do like desal units and then use the brine to grow highly salt tolerant halophytes in the brine. Like they've got desal units in Saudi Arabia and stuff where they're trying to grow plants in the brine. And I think we've got to do something with the brine. If we do desal, the problem is what do you do with the concentrate? But if you can get a plant that'll grow on it, that would be worth having a crack at, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
I reckon there's only one word that is the worst thing they can say to you, and that's no, or you can't do it. Where does that drive come from? Do you remember a time where it wasn't there, or that's just been David Thompson from day one?
No, look, I've actually thought about that. 1979, I remember, because my father, he came from Scotland, and I remember him complaining to buggering about Merino sheep being terrible mothers, and we'd get 50 to 60% lambing, and it was always the sheep's fault. And I'd never sort of challenged him until then, and I said, I think it's your fault because you're not looking after them. And then he said, well, if you think you can do it, you do it. So when I finally came home, I ran the sheep and learned how to feed. I went and worked for another farmer and learned how to run sheep a lot better. And then I thought, well, what is possible? And then listening to different people when things were falling off the rails in the early 90s, I remember I used to subscribe to the Farm Journal. I don't know if you remember the Farm Journal. And there was a fair bit of Jim Watt stuff back in the day, 93. Yeah. And I thought, I'd have a crack at that. And that's really how we started. And I sort of got up the rung there a bit, became a classer for the company, and met a lot of different people around Australia and overseas. And that, I suppose that instilled in me the confidence to maybe challenge tradition. I think tradition is probably the biggest anchor or impediment to innovation. And the sheep industry, particularly the Merino sheep industry, is probably the most traditional of all. And I don't mind taking them on. I reckon I think it's good to take them on. But as long as you take them on with facts, and I think going right back to with you and ASBBs and stuff, it actually does work. And they've been so slow in actually embracing that, whereas we were pretty early. And I loved it when they said, "Oh no, they don't work." Well, they actually bloody do. And then being told that we can't stop mulesing sheep because they'll all die. I mean, we stopped in 2004, and it would never go back. Never go back. So I love being told you can't do it. Love being told. It's one of the best things is to say, I still remember Tom Bull, Tom, but he I think it was Best Wool, Best Lamb. I think it was 2010, and he said, well, you can't make Merino your lambs, but you can make composites. And I said, well, we're going to have a crack, and that's when in 2010 we started, and we had some pretty good results at the beginning, but now we're going really well, and we've worked out how to do it, and let's make it common practice, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like having a crack.
There's nothing surer than that. I'm sure the family around there don't say things like you can't do that to you very often, because they would know what that means for them going forward.
Oh, there's a fair bit of eye rolling when I can't show you behind you, but I've got bloody little pockets of dried herbs and stuff that I've got going, and I'll be often in here in the middle of the night, bloody crushing up stuff and tasting it and seeing what it's like. So there's a bit of that going on, but they're all terrible. I never throw anything out. That's because I'll get a bit cranky if they throw something out that I've been working on for quite some time. But it is interesting. Like I'll get Pete Gilmore. He'll contact me and say, "What's new? What's new? You've got something new coming on?" Because they all want something new. So it's always trying to find something new. So we're trying to bring in some plants from Europe, some seeds, halophytes. So some oyster leaf, which would be good if we can get it to grow. Sorry, going over the place. Yeah.
Have you made yourself crook yet, tasting random stuff in the paddock? Oh.
No, I'm not going to admit that. No, but I have spat out a lot.
Yeah, right.
I remember there was it still is there. I mean, there's some samphire that grows really well down the flat, but it tastes like kerosene, absolutely dreadful. So but you don't know that till you put it in your mouth. So
that sounds like the one for your biofuels, mate. That sounds like
that's right. Well, funny you should say that, but I'm thinking that it could well be.
Some biphenol. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's always on the lookout for something new. What's over there? Anything on the beaches in New Zealand? That's we grow New Zealand spinach here, like Warrigal greens.
Yeah.
That'll be growing on the beach over there.
Yeah, that's a bit. I don't pay attention as closely as you'd like me to, mate. You're welcome to come here and have a look, but
I'm always looking. I'm always looking. Like pre-doing this, I didn't even know how to use a pair of secateurs, and now I've got bloody secateurs everywhere. So wherever I'm driving anywhere, I'll go and have a snip and have a taste. So
yeah, good. This question's probably, I don't know how you'd keep it to one answer, but the question we ask all guests is, what's the last thing you changed your mind about? But I don't know if you ever keep it the same. But
the last thing I changed my mind about? Retiring.
Oh, you were going to retire, or you are going to retire?
No, never. No. Well, people ask me, like, you get past 60, where are you going to retire? Where and when? And while I'm productive, I don't want to retire. I mean, there's too much to do. And there's lots to change. And one thing I really like is working with young people. Like, we have the Murdoch students come once a year, and we do quite a few bus tours and stuff now. And I just find it great to be talking to young people and also people outside of agriculture. And I think we, as an industry, are really bad at selling our message. And we used to do dinner with a farmer, and I was the farmer. And I remember we were doing one in Freo, and a lady got up and she said, "Oh, we love farmers, but we just don't know what you do." So I've always thought that, we've got to tell people, firstly, what we do and why we do it. It takes some more courage to ask questions of those people than beat our chest and say, the city people don't understand us. It's up to us as an industry to educate them and don't treat them as imbeciles because we haven't been good enough to explain what we do. So we always invite people to come and take around the farm and say, this is what we do. It's not all beer and skittles, but no one forces us to be farmers. No one.
No.
But we've got to get better. We've got to get better at selling a message. Really do. Like it's. I think the biggest challenge facing us is the city-country divide. Massive.
Yeah, I guess like you, I live in a city and I get to talk to city people all the time. It's not a very big city; it's in New Zealand, but yeah, I don't find anyone that doesn't like farmers. So I would find lots of people that have a lot of respect for people out there farming, and I think you're right. We just need to be. Yeah, there's lots of good things. We just need to make sure we continue to tell that story. And I think anyone who listens to this podcast, David, can't help but be inspired if they're a young person out there and keen to. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, just throw caution to the wind and hook in. That's the right industry to do that, because there's lots of people. Kind of will, as you've sort of seen, you can find a lot of people that will support you if you get into different networks, you learn lots of stuff and you get challenged by different people, and you know that you can go again.
Yeah, well, get outside your comfort zone and talk to people outside. It's all very easy to be insular and looking inwards. And if you're not a farmer, you're talking to farmers, it can be dead set boring because you're so easily excluded. So I think we've got to be better at it. And sure, there's a lot of shit that goes on, but we got to own that too. If you're in livestock, you've got dead stock. I mean, things happen, and when you have a such an animal dies, and so we have to own it and be proud of what we do. I think anyway, and not fear the questions. And I think that's one of the big things is the fear of by people in agriculture being not understood by whether it's politicians or just the general public in general about what we do, and they may bring up make assumptions. So the best way to avoid that is to actually tell them. Yeah.
Yep.
Tell them what we do.
Yep. Yeah.
And if every farmer or every farming business talked to 5 people or 6 people a year, it'd make a big difference, I reckon. Make a big difference on our perception.
Mm. Yeah, no, good point.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right, mate, we better leave it there, but it's always awesome to have a chat with you, and you can't help but come up with new ideas, anyone that listens to you for too long. So hopefully there's a couple of hundred people out there that have decided to do something slightly different today, because if they aren't, they haven't listened properly, I would say.
No, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully you can make some sense of it all.
Thanks very much for your time, mate, and all the best for Ramsale.
Good. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thanks again to Heineken, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.